Devotees, all the Mataji, Prabhujis, thank you, and my humble obeisances to all of them. And I want to let you know that I have absolutely no qualification to speak in front of everyone, but for my own purification, I just accepted it. So the topic for today's discussion will be developing the taste for Krishna consciousness. Before we go deep into the topic, let's have this sing the Jaya Radha Madhav and then the invocation prayers. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai. Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai. Hare Krishna. श्री श्री गौरताई की जय, श्री श्री सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान की जय, श्री श्री श्रीनाथ जी गोपाल जी की। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो ओं विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिचारु स्वामी इति नामिने। नमो ओं विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवाणी पास्कत्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Thank you. Hare Krishna. So, as I was mentioning, the topic for today's discussion or the theme is developing taste for Krishna consciousness. Now, what does this mean, right? Now, Krishna consciousness includes the various activities, and every activity have a taste for it, right? Like for we are doing chanting, and we have a taste for the chanting. That is Krishna's pastimes. When we hear, there is a taste for hearing the Krishna's pastime. So the taste is about the spiritual taste, right? Which Prabhupada calls as the higher taste. Now let's understand what that means is whether we have the taste and how do we get the taste if we don't have it, right? Now let's go back and let's take, for example, in order to understand the spiritual taste, right, let us understand the material taste so that we can appreciate much better, right? Now when we take the material taste, right, immediately, for example, what comes to our mind is the sweets, right? If you see the pictures, I'm sure everyone enjoys the sweets, so delicious sweets. And when I put this picture, I remembered our temple devotees make wonderful sweets. Balram Prabhu makes excellent sweets, and one of my favorite sweets is the Rasmalai. So delicious, right? And I used to think I need to have many tongues to enjoy the deliciousness of our sweets, right? So we could understand that the material taste, we are able to realize that and enjoy that and enjoy those delicious tastes. Now, unfortunately, for the last 2 years, right, some of the people throughout the world didn't have this taste for some point of time. Correct? What does that mean? What is that reason? Because of COVID. Because of COVID, they didn't have the taste for some time. See, if you take COVID, again, the class is not on COVID, but I just wanted to give the example because we have all been undergone so much, either directly or indirectly through, in whatever way we got this impacted, right? And that is still in our mind. So I just want to use that as an example to understand the spiritual aspect. We'll go into the detail, but that's the idea. So now, those in COVID, when a person gets, when he or she gets a COVID, he has fever or a headache and everything, but there is some unique symptom which we can say that it's because of COVID. What is that? Taste. The taste, right? The taste. So, if a person doesn't has a taste, then we say that that person is affected, impacted by COVID. Correct? So the COVID is the lack of taste. That he cannot realize the bitter, the sweet, or whatever it is. That person cannot understand, and he doesn't know anything. Similarly, now if a person doesn't have a taste, we say that okay, he is being infected by COVID. Similarly, when I chant, do I have the taste? When I hear the pastimes of the Lord, do I have the taste? When I read the scriptures, do I have the taste? And honestly speaking, I don't have a taste for that. Okay. So I don't have the taste. Maybe, so let me ask you, how many of you have the taste for chanting, for hearing Bhagavad Gita, for hearing the pastimes? Please raise your hand. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you. At least we have few devotees who have the taste for chanting and for hearing. Okay. So I don't have a taste. Now, before even going into, so the whole today's theme is, how do we develop the taste for the Krishna consciousness? And what is the process we need to follow so that we'll develop those tastes? For the people who don't have the taste, right? Now, before even going to that, first of all, is all the Krishna conscious activities, does it has a taste? The chanting of Krishna's name, or chanting or hearing the Krishna's pastimes. So let us understand from the scriptural injunction whether Krishna conscious activities has a taste. The first example or first reference I want to give from the scripture is the Nectar of Instruction, text 7. I put the verse, but we will just, so I'll read the translation. The holy name, character, pastimes, and activities of Krishna are all transcendently sweet like sugar candy. Okay? That's what Rupa Goswami says in Nectar of Instruction in text 7. So that gives us an evidence that the Krishna conscious activities has a taste. The another example, another reference is from Nectar of Devotion, right? Rupa Goswami says this, whenever I chant the holy name of the Lord, I need millions of tongues and millions of ears to relish the transcendental taste of the holy name. Correct? People who have heard, this is something which we have heard multiple times. So Rupa Goswami says that. So from this we can understand that spiritual activities, Krishna conscious activities, whether chanting or hearing the pastimes or the transcendental pastimes or the transcendental qualities of the Lord, has a taste. Right? Since I don't have a taste, I cannot say that Krishna conscious activities doesn't have a taste. Right? If, like say for example, if a person is infected by COVID, even the delicious Rasmalai made by Balram Prabhu, if you give it to him, he'll say there is no taste. Agreed? Right? Similarly, if I don't have the taste, doesn't mean that the activity is not tasty. So now, we understand that Krishna consciousness has a taste. Now, the question may even come, why do I even care? So, there are a lot of people in this world who doesn't have any taste. So, are they not surviving? Are they not living? So, the question comes, why do I need even to have the taste for Krishna consciousness? Now, if you really understand, we as a spirit soul, we are always full of bliss, knowledge and eternity. But unfortunately, when we came to this material world, because of the contamination, all our spiritual bliss is being covered fully, right? It's being covered and we are subject to the external energy of the Lord. So if you see the picture below, there are three: mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance, and we are subject to that, we are conditioned. And because of the covering, we are not able to release the bliss. Okay. Now at the same time, why do we need to get the taste, right? So for that, let us understand what is the goal of our life, right? Now, there is a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, in Canto 7, Prahlad Maharaj is getting the instructions from Narad Muni when Prahlad Maharaj was in the womb of his mother. Right? So this verse gives us that Canto 7 talks about the Prahlad Maharaj, and chapter 7 and verse 55 gives us that one. So I'll read the translation. In this material world, to render service to the lotus feet of Govinda, the cause of all causes, and to see him everywhere is the only goal of life. This much alone is the ultimate goal of human life, as explained by all the revealed scriptures. So that is the goal of our human life. And we are all being human beings, that is the goal. And if the goal is to do the service to the lotus feet of Govinda, and I need to have some taste to do the service, right? If I don't have the taste, I'm not going to do that one, right? This is the same example. If that Rasmalai doesn't have a sweet, will anyone even have a motivation to consume that? It doesn't make sense, right? Why should I take it that doesn't have? Similarly, in order for us to achieve the goal of life, we need to do the service. And in order to do the service, I should have some taste so that I am motivated to do more and more. Understood? Now, how do I get the taste? Right? I understand I don't have a taste. How do I get the taste? So that is the topic which we'll discuss in the next 25-30 minutes. Now let us go back to the COVID example itself, right? So now if a person is having COVID, what is the process for him to go get a taste? If you see, he approaches a doctor, right? And the doctor does the test and he confirms, yes, you have COVID. Then he says, okay, take quarantine. Quarantine means you isolate yourself, right? And then he says, every day have nutritious food. And he says have multivitamins because your immune is down, and have multivitamins. And he also prescribed some medicine in addition to all these things, right? So this is the process which is being followed. Of course, there are some exceptions to it. We'll not go into it. The people may have other items to cover as well, but we will, in general, majority of the people follows this process in order to rectify from COVID and get the taste for which they had it, okay? So let us follow the same process and then understand how do we get the taste for spiritual activities, okay? Now the first one is approaching a doctor. Now, approaching a doctor, if you go to the doctor and say, doctor, I don't have taste for chanting. What is the doctor going to do? He said, what are you talking about? Right? Unless the doctor is like a devotee, like a Pritesh Parmar Prabhu, then he understands that one. But in general, if you go to any physician and say, I don't have a taste for chanting, it doesn't make any sense. So what does that mean from a spiritual aspect approaching a doctor? Anyone can tell? Sorry? Absolutely, you are all very intelligent. So, approaching a doctor from a spiritual perspective means approaching a spiritual master. Let us understand from the scriptural injunctions, like what is the evidence from the scriptures that why I need to go to a spiritual master and what is the significance of approaching a spiritual master. So the first reference I want to give is Krishna, the Supreme Lord, talks about this in chapter 4, verse 34. Right? Tadvidi pranijapathena pariprasnena sevaya upadeshanti ke jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. Right? The translation is, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Right? Krishna himself gives this instruction to Arjuna to approach a spiritual master. Because they have undergone this. They know exactly. So, is every conditioned soul, and I know many of you have taken initiation from the spiritual masters, and some of you have not. If you don't have, please plan to take initiation from the spiritual master, because Krishna himself recommends that in this verse. That shows the significance of approaching a spiritual master. Now let us also take another example, another reference. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives this point, right? In Madhya Leela 19:151. He says, Brahmande Brahmite Kaun Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beach. Right? According to the karma, all living entities are wandering throughout the entire universe. Some of them are being elevated to the upper planetary system, some are going down into the lower planetary systems. Out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who is very fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. By the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. So that shows the significance of approaching a spiritual master. So we all need to first approach our spiritual master in order to get this spiritual taste. Now, let us go to the next process, right? What did we say? First we said we approach the spiritual master, approach the doctor. Then what does the COVID patient has to do? Quarantine, right? So quarantine means what? It's an isolation, right? Not associating with anyone, right? Being isolated until that person gets fully cured. So now what does that quarantine means in this spiritual aspect of spiritual taste perspective? Anyone? Oh, we are very intelligent people here. Thank you so much. So basically, avoiding the association with non-devotees. Now what is the scriptural evidence here, right? Again, Srimad Bhagavatam gives us a beautiful verse, right? In Canto 4, chapter 22, text 23. Does anyone know what is this chapter talks about from the context perspective? This is basically Prithu Maharaj is meeting the four Kumaras, and then there are beautiful verses. They have these discussions, and then one of the verse talks about the avoiding the association of non-devotees. Let us understand that verse. In the interest of time, I will not go through the verse fully, but I'll read the translation and let's understand. Okay? The translation of this verse is, the four Kumaras and Prithu Maharaj is having that discussion, and four Kumaras are giving this. One has to make progress in spiritual life by not associating with persons who are simply interested in sense gratification and making money. Not only such persons, but one who associates with such persons should be avoided. One should mold his life in such a way that he cannot live in peace without drinking the nectar of the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. One can be thus elevated by being disgusted with the taste for sense enjoyment. Four Kumaras are giving that to Prithu Maharaj, and Prithu Maharaj is so elevated person. And I'll also refer a couple of verses in the subsequent section of the class. Okay? So this clearly tells us that we need to avoid the association in order to really get the spiritual taste. Okay? Now, what was the third step for a person who was infected by COVID? We said? Nutritious food. Nutritious food. Okay? So, now, what does that nutritious food mean from a spiritual taste perspective? Good, very good. Prasadam is one aspect of it. But then I want to map nutritious food with something else also. Correct Mataji. But hearing is one part of it. Ninth process of devotional service. Sarita Mataji, yes. Thank you Mataji. You're so enthusiasm. You are all very intelligent. Probably you all know the process to get the taste. So thank you. Nice to hear those things. So we see the ninth process of devotional service is basically nurturing the soul. That the soul will be so happy when we do perform these activities. Right? Now, what is the scriptural evidence for that? Srimad Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj tells these 9 process of the devotional service to his school friends, and which is there in Canto 7, chapter 5 and text 23. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atmani Vedanam. So Shravanam means hearing. And then if you see on the left hand side, is that coming through correctly? Able to see the picture? So there is, for each of these 9 processes, there are the spiritual who is really advanced and perfect in that particular devotional service. For hearing, who is that devotee who is really advanced in the hearing? Parikshit Maharaj, right? Parikshit Maharaj, during his, he was cursed and then he has to go on, during the 7 days, he is approaching Sukadev Goswami and hears about Srimad Bhagavatam. And so for hearing, Parikshit Maharaj. And Kirtanam means chanting or explaining about the Krishna consciousness activities. So who is the personality behind chanting? Sukadev Goswami, because he is giving the Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. He is the personality behind for Kirtan. And Vishnu, remembering. Who is the personality for remembering? Prahlad Maharaj, right? And then serving the lotus feet of the Lord, right? Pada Sevan. Who is the personality? Goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Devi, right? And then Archana. Archana means deity worship. Who is the personality? Maharaj Prithu. Who is the personality behind that one? And praying. Vandanam. Who is that? Akrura. Akrura is for the Vandanam. And servitude. Dasyam. Hanuman, who is there, who is all, we don't need to talk about that. We all know how much service he did to Lord Ramachandra, right, as a servant mode. And he's teaching us that we all need to do that service. And then friendship. Arjuna. Arjuna was the most beloved friend of Sri Krishna. Who else can be more dear to Krishna than Arjuna, right? He was so close. And complete surrender. Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj, if you recall the story, right, he surrenders everything and Vamanadev occupies the entire the universe, all with the 3 steps. Beautiful pastime. We'll not go into the detail, but you can see that these are all the personalities. Just by performing one devotional service, they were perfected. But we may not be to that level, so we may have to continue to follow this process of 9 devotional service. Now, this we also call as the nutritious food for the soul. And then, how to execute this 9 process of devotional service, Rupa Goswami is beautifully explaining that. So now, why do we even need to understand that, right? So the nutritious food, let us take one example. Now, I think today in Govinda Snacks, Vada Pav is one of the menu, right? So now, in order to enjoy Vada Pav, right, first, there is a process. First, Balram does that. He makes the pav ready. He toasts the pav, keep it in the right thing, and then he makes the vada, right? And then the vada has to be inserted within the pav, and then you have to consume the vada pav, right? You cannot just, you understand? Otherwise, you will be eating the vada and you will not. Utsaha nishyadharya dhairya tat karma pravartatna sangatyago satavrato sabdir bhakti prasidhyati. What does that mean? There are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional service. Being enthusiastic, endeavoring with confidence, being patient, acting according to the regulative principles, abandoning the association of non-devotees, following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. So when you are performing this devotional service, you need to apply these principles so that devotional service execution is more fruitful. Okay? So that is what Rupa Goswami, and if you see that there's a beautiful book, Nectar of Instruction. If you are not aware of, please take a chance to read that one. And text 3 of Nectar of Instruction gives that one. Okay? So that is on the nutritious food. Now, what was the next item for the COVID patient to follow in order to get the taste? Multivitamin. So, what does that multivitamin do from a spiritual aspect or to get the spiritual taste? Anyone?
Read books.
Read books, part of it. Chanting, part of it. Service, part of it. Rasagulla. That doesn't have multivitamin, Prabhu. So, beautifully in the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami gives this one. He says, there are 5 potent forms of devotional service. Even though there are 9 devotional services, if you really want to advance, Stick to this 5 potent of devotional service. This is like a multivitamin for our soul, right? There are multiple things combined into one and then given, right? Let me read the translation of it. It's in chapter 13 of Nectar of Devotion, and which we also call as Pancha Anga Bhakti, the 5-1. Rupa Goswami has stated that 5 kinds of devotional activities, namely residing in Mathura, that's the first one, worshipping the deity of the Lord, the third one is reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, fourth one is serving a devotee, and fifth one is chanting the Mahamantra. And he says, are so potent that a small attachment to any one of these 5 items can arouse devotional ecstasy even in a neophyte. Right? I'm a neophyte. I'm even below a neophyte. I don't have a taste. So Rupa Goswami gives us that multivitamin. He says, follow this 5 potent, right? Potent activities. You will get the taste. Now, of course, we are not residing. We are all residing in New Jersey, most of us. So we are not in Mathura, but we can still follow the other aspects, right? Worshipping the deity, and then reading Srimad Bhagavatam, serving a devotee, and then chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. That will give us, right? When we have that multivitamin, we will get a taste. Okay? So that is the multivitamin part of it. Now, what is the other? When we go with the COVID patient, what was the 5th item we mentioned that he needs to take in order to get the taste for come back to his normal, to get the medical taste? The doctor prescribes medicines, right? It all depends on the nature of that individual, right? He may have a headache, he may prescribe a medicine. He may have a body ache, he may prescribe ibuprofen or whatever, heavy dose of ibuprofen. So it depends upon the individual, the dosage is being given, right? Some has 100 mg, some may have 250 mg. We don't know, but that's the doctor gives that, right? Same way, our spiritual master will give the dose depending upon how much we are lacking as well, right? So now in that medicines, I have taken 2 verses from Bhagavatam which explains that one. Okay. So let us take what is the scriptural evidence, right? Let us read that from the scripture. Constant remembrance of the Lord is the medicine, right? Now there is a beautiful verse in Canto 4, chapter 22, text number 24, which I was referring, quoting text 23 earlier, right? This is the next verse. So this is, if you see on the left hand side the picture, right? You can see that, who are all there? The 4 Kumaras, and Maharaj Prithu is sitting down, and 4 Kumaras are on the throne, right? And they are having these discussions, and one of this verse, so beautiful, right? When you get a chance, we'll not go into the detail of that. I'll read the translation, but please read the series, the sequence of verses, beautiful verses from chapter 22 in Canto 4. And one of the verse is this one, 24. A candidate for spiritual advancement must be non-violent, must follow the footsteps of great acharyas, must always remember the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, must follow the regulative principles without material desire, and while following the regulative principles, should not blaspheme others. A devotee should lead a very simple life and not be disturbed by the duality of the opposing elements. He should learn to tolerate them. So this gives us the medicine to get the taste for the spiritual activities, right? This verse itself is a special way. We can talk about it for hours together. There are so many components of it, right? The first is the 4 Kumaras are saying that we should always remember the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, because they are all transcendental pastimes, and they are very it gives the transcendental bliss. Now, if you take Haridas Thakur, and if you take the great devotees, they just be hearing the pastimes they used to survive their days, right? So that was so much of nectar in that pastimes, and so that way we have to remember the Supreme Lord. That's what Prabhupada says, right? We should always remember Krishna and never forget him, 24/7, right? That is how we can get the taste, and here Prithu Maharaj and four Kumaras are having the discussions, and this verse talks in detail about that. And also they are also bringing the other components, right? A devotee should lead a very simple life, not disturbed by the duality. This material world, everyone has various problems, right? Duality is that we have summer season, we have winter season, we have spring. So there is a duality and we need to tolerate them, right? That's also there in Bhagavad Gita, and here the four Kumaras are reiterating that point as well. And we should not be disturbed and we need to tolerate them. So that is one medicine, right? Now let us take another medicine as well from the scriptures, right? The same series, as I was saying, the same chapter 22 in Canto 4 has a series of verses, and the next verse is talking about a different medicine. And we can, let me read the translation of this. And this is still with Prithu Maharaj and four Kumaras. If you see the left hand side picture, what is Prithu Maharaj is doing? He is washing the lotus feet of the four Kumaras. So the four Kumaras are the great elevated soul, and then he is respecting them and having these discussions. And this verse says, the devotee should gradually increase the culture of devotional service by constant hearing of the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These pastimes are like ornamental decorations on the ears of devotees. By rendering devotional service and transcending the material qualities, one can easily be fixed in transcendence in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? He's saying we have to constantly hear the transcendental qualities of the Lord and the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Now Prabhupada explains that in order to understand Krishna, we have to see Krishna through our ears. What does that mean? How do we see Krishna through our ears? Can anyone tell? Nothing but hearing, right? Only by hearing the qualities of Krishna, by listening to those pastimes, we can understand him much better, and through ears we can see Krishna. Is it not true? That is what four Kumaras is discussing with Prithu Maharaj, and here clearly says that. By rendering devotional service and transcending the material qualities, one can easily be fixed in the transcendence and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So every day we need to practice to hear our lectures. So many of us are going to office, we are going to various places, right? We should have a habit of hearing the pastimes. There are so many lectures, so many pastimes, so many things from the great acharyas, and we should continuously hear those things when we are going. So now we saw all the 5 aspects of it, right? How to get a taste for a material, for a person who has lost taste to the COVID. To recap, right? We said approaching a doctor for a COVID patient. For us, from a spiritual taste, approaching the spiritual master. Now on the COVID, in order to get the taste, that person has to quarantine. And for us to get the spiritual taste, we need to avoid association with non-devotees. In order to get the taste from the COVID thing, doctors prescribe nutritious food because the person is weak and he needs to consume nutritious food. And for us, from a spiritual aspect, what is that nutritious food? Here is mean 9 process of devotional service. And then the doctor is also asking the COVID patient to take multivitamin. And for us, the multivitamin is the Panchanga Bhakti, right? The 5 potent of bhaktis. And then the doctor prescribes other medicines. And we talked about it, verse 24 and verse 25. Constant remembrance of the Lord and constant hearing of the Supreme Lord. So this gives, if you follow this, okay, 100% guarantee you will get the taste for Krishna conscious activities. Right? So now let us practice that. Right? So just concluding, right, just a summary of the whole discussion. And the first point is we also need to be serious. Right? If a person is being affected by COVID, how much serious that person is. Have you seen, right? So some of my relatives have got it and they are so agitated, they are so serious. Whatever they are being prescribed, they follow 100% without any deviation. Because they want to again taste that Rasmalai. They want to taste again the other sweets and other things. So they want to get the taste back. So they are very serious. So now, in order to get the spiritual taste, we also need to be very serious, right? Scriptures give us so many guidance. Prabhupada has given this, founded this International Society of Krishna Consciousness basically to give us the taste, right? So we have to follow those principles and get that taste. So we need to be serious and strictly follow the rules and regulations. And sincere practice on a daily basis, right? We talked about the multivitamin and all. You need to take it on a daily basis in order that to work. It's not that once in a blue moon you take it and then it's not going to work. Every day you need to take. Same way, these devotional service and activities, what we discussed so far, needs to be taken on a daily basis so that we quickly recover the taste for Krishna consciousness. And then we have to execute the devotional service with full faith. Right? These are all not something verses which I made or anyone made. Prabhupada is quoting this evidence, right? Srimad Bhagavatam is telling that one. Nectar of instruction, Rupa Goswami is telling. Nectar of devotion, Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami are talking about the beautiful scriptures, that scriptural evidence. We have all those verses, right? So we need to execute that with full faith. What else is needed? And Prabhupada is telling the same thing, repeating the same thing what he learned from his acharyas. And finally, right, we need to say we should always remember Krishna and we should never forget Krishna. If we do that, if we continuously follow these instructions, guaranteed we will get the taste. For the people who don't have taste, of course some of the devotees have the taste, which is nice to see. And they can also, their taste also will be multiplied more than like Rupa Goswami was saying, thousands and millions of tons are needed. So if we follow this, we can also come to that stage. So let us come, and Prabhupada gives the same thing. If you read the purport in the text in Nectar of Instruction, he's giving an analogy of jaundice. Have you heard that one, right? Now, for a jaundice person, if you give him a sugarcane juice, he will say there is no taste to it, right? But in reality, we know the sugarcane juice has so much of sugar in it. And it's very sweet and delicious. Similarly, the same I gave COVID because that is what the recent thing we all underwent. So we are able to relate that one. So Prabhupada talks about the jaundice, and then he says the medicine is you need to continuously take those sugarcane juice so that you can come out of the disease. Same way we need to execute this devotional service, the nutritious food, multivitamin, what we talked about. And then we can come out of we can get the taste for Krishna consciousness. Let us all practice that, and they are building this new temple. By the time we practice that, and we all can get the taste and jump on ecstasy in the new temple, right? So let's all follow that. So with that, I'll end. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Hare Krishna. So maybe I can take one question if there is any, you're all intelligent people. If not, that's fine. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, in the Nectar of Devotion, it says there's 32 things that one should not do. One of them says devotee should not wear blue or red dress in front of the deities.
I don't know, Prabhu. Yeah, there are 64 limbs of devotion. Goswami says, follow these, follow that, and all. And we talked about top 5. I don't know about the color. Apologies, I'm sorry. Maybe I'll look into it, Prabhu. Red or blue, you are
So
saying?
it's just one small, thing. Just first, there's 20 things that you should do, and there's, I think, 32 things that you should not do. It says you should not wear red or blue color garments to the temple.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Anyone else, devotees, have any understanding on that? So the question is Prabhuji is asking, in the Nectar of Devotion, it is being mentioned that we should not wear blue colored dress and red color. Blue or red colored dress. I'm sorry, I'm wearing red colored dress. I'm sorry, I didn't even know about that part. So does anyone knows about that? So Prabhu, we need to answer. I don't know the answer. Maybe I can find out and tell you, Prabhu. Does anyone want to share the question? Does anyone know the answer? Okay. So we don't know. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So let's thank His Grace Mohan Govind Prabhu for a wonderful lecture.
Hello.
Analogy of COVID and how to get the taste back in spiritual world. Very nice. So now, with all this lecture, I want to see whether you have all taste back or not. There were some case prasadam being served. Actually, we could have served outside, but it's a little chilly. I think we are serving here. So please honor the prasadam, and at around 7 o'clock.